Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kevin Galetz, and I'm an industry education coordinator working with the Regina District Industry Education Council and SunWest School Division. Today it's my pleasure to introduce my daughter-in-law, Laura Galetz, who is the manager of major gifts for the Jim Pattison's Children's Hospital Foundation. Laura and her team of colleagues are dedicated to raising funds for the enhancement of healthcare at Saskatchewan's first and only children's and maternal hospital. She will describe the work they do for the foundation and the path she took to get to this position. Just a reminder before we begin, this session is being recorded and will appear on the RDIEC YouTube channel for you or others to view in the future. We'd also like to request that any students who watch this session go to our website at www.rdiec.ca and complete the student survey that can be found near the top of the website's homepage. Completion of the survey gets your name in a monthly draw for a $50 gift card. Again, the website is www.rdiec.ca. If you have any questions for our presenters throughout or after the session, please type them in the chat box. Once again, welcome, Laura.
Thanks so much for that warm welcome. I'm so excited to share about what I do and how I get to connect with the community. Thanks for having me today. So again, I'm Laura Galetz. I am the manager of major gifts at Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation. I live in Martensville, and I have for the last 9 years with my husband Mike and our 2 boys, Caleb and Jasper. I've worked at the foundation for just over 2 years this week, give or take, and 2 of the fastest years ever. I work with a team of 17 dedicated people, including our passionate and driven president and CEO, Bryn Boback-Lane, who has been at the helm of our foundation for over 20 years. Collectively, our team has over 150 years of fundraising experience, and I'm so privileged that I get to work and learn alongside of them as we're all focused on enhancing care for kids, expecting moms and families in Saskatchewan. Today, I'm going to share a bit about what I do, what is fundraising, what is major gifts, as well as share my journey that brought me to fundraising and the skills that drive the work we do each day as we help kids in the province. Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation is a provincial organization dedicated to raising funds towards the enhancement of maternal and children's healthcare in Saskatchewan and Jim Pattison Children's Hospital. Our foundation disperses over $1 million each year for urgent maternal and pediatric needs like state-of-the-art equipment, family-centered programming, and innovative research, in addition to a 10-year capital campaign that raised over $75 million for the province's first dedicated children's and maternal hospital. If you can believe it, Saskatchewan was one of 2 provinces in Canada that did not actually have a dedicated children's hospital until the opening in September 2019, where the dream really became reality. The dream originally started in 1992 when our province specifically wanted to make sure that we had funds dedicated to children's equipment and a facility designed with their unique needs. After 20 long years, that hospital became a reality, and we are so excited to make sure that we have that space for our kids, but we continue to innovate and enhance that care. I could really talk about what makes each part of our foundation so special and each individual teammate and what they're accounted for. But what I'll do is talk about the development team specifically, but high level, we have a couple of areas. We've got our management leaders, and these really are our leaders dedicated to the accountability and direction on our team. They work with our board on overarching strategy and goals and alignment for what we do each day. Our communications team is really responsible for our brand and the messaging that you see, the stories that we share, and our graphics, and how we make sure that we are a cohesive brand throughout the province. We also have a very important administration team. As you can imagine, in non-for-profit organization, it's incredibly important to have accurate and ethical financial data. And so we rely on our administration and finance team to really hone in on that piece and make sure that we're following all the guidelines. And of course, we have our development team, which is the area that I focus on. And really, when you talk about a charitable organization or a nonprofit organization, everybody is a fundraiser. But when you really get down to the core role that I do and the development team does, we fundraise every day. So we have 3 main goals. And the first one is to share our mission with the public, share the impact that we make towards our mission, and and the gifts that every donation can make. The other piece is to ask our donors to make a contribution. So when we look at every day, we approach it, hey, can we find the right opportunity for a donor to suit their charitable giving goals? And then we also thank our donors. So this is the area that really is responsible for making sure that they recognize that their generous donation has made an impact and is going to inspire others. And so we have a number of ways that our donors can be recognized, and that's depends on the gift that they make as well. But it's incredibly important to thank our donors. And you can imagine funding comes in a lot of sorts of ways, and we are so lucky to have a team that spans all of our areas, including annual giving, partnerships, third-party fundraising, major events, and our major gifts team. So when you look at fundraising, it really starts with the individual. So people are hosting fundraisers on their own throughout the province, and the hospital wasn't built in one day. So as you can imagine, these are really grassroots organizations starting in different communities throughout the province where they fundraise on their own. It can even be a child hosting their own lemonade stand and then donating that fund back to Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation. So gifts come in all sorts of ways. There are golf charities, charity events, there's employee giving programs. There are people that make a monthly contribution to our foundation, and they can be a member of our Sunshine Makers Club. And then we have events throughout the year that really impact and thank our donors, but also require volunteers and a lot of different elements within our team, including our communications and branding. One of the events that you may recall is our provincial radiothon. So this is an annual event in November that spans the entire province in a collective goal to raise funds for this last year was the first hemodialysis unit in Saskatchewan. So people can make donations one time, they can make a donation multiple times a year. They can be sponsors. So businesses can contribute in a lot of different ways as a sponsor and participate in annual fundraising events. I'm going to focus a little bit more on major gifts and what I do. But when you think about those broad aspects in terms of share our mission, ask a donor, and thank a donor, that's what I do every day. I'm building relationships, I'm sharing, I'm learning and sharing stories with people, and provide opportunities. So that area for me is really when you look at asking a donor, I'm providing them the opportunity to be a part of a Saskatchewan-based organization that's going to help enhance care for kids, moms, and families. And if those opportunities suit their goals, then we can find a way to match their gift and find a timeline that suits them. The part that really separates major gifts is when you talk about, it's typically a larger donation. So you're looking at a donation that might be from 10,000 and it could be towards the $1 million or above, depending on what that contribution is for the individual. As you can see, I have a huge list of things that we do throughout the day, but what it really boils down to is communicating with people, building relationships, learning how they want to leave their legacy, provide them the right opportunity, and then share their gift with others to inspire. So as you can see on my slide here, there's a wall in the background that's kind of angled, and that's our wall of honor within the lobby at Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation, or Children's Hospital. So this wall recognizes those longer contributions, major gifts to the growth of the hospital, those foundation fundraisers that really laid the roots in building this hospital in the province and how we are going to go further. So it's just one example of the ways we recognize. We can also share on social media, we can share in the newspaper. Depending on the gift, we can really highlight that gift to make sure that the family that makes that donation or the corporation that makes that donation are being thanked in the appropriate way. As you can imagine, our role can have a lot of emotions with that. So you're building relationships, but you're actually talking to a number of different of groups. So in conversations, you can imagine, for instance, you might be speaking to a family member who has lost a child and is looking to honor that child's memory with a donation, and maybe share their legacy within the hospital with a room naming. You might also be speaking with a corporate donor who's really looking for high-level impact to share with their stakeholders and make an impact in the community. Those are very different conversations. And so it's incredibly important to be authentic, and to find specific ways that you can share how their impact in their story is going to inspire others and really help healthcare for generations. It's really a privilege to actually be brought into these conversations with families. As you can imagine, it's an emotional roller coaster some days, but it really is a privilege to get to share a memory, and help families and see the smiles on their faces when they know that they've made a difference for other families, right? So some of the skills, talking about all of those emotions, right? So you really need to have a lot of integrity, and you need to be trustworthy. And on top of that, you need to be a good listener. So if you're in fundraising, you're going to be hearing stories and sharing those stories. So you need to be really compassionate, honest, and creative, right? There's new ways to share stories, and there's a ever-changing format of media to be able to celebrate and inspire others. So in addition to being really concrete and authentic, you also need to have the ability to bounce and adapt, because the days are not always the same, the stories, the donors are not always the same, and the events are not always the same, and don't technically take the same amount of impact of your day. So as you can imagine, adaptation has been kind of the broad stroke that everybody has been going through right now. And when you think of the impact on fundraising, events have changed drastically, right? Meetings with donors have changed drastically. So we're always looking to find the right way to communicate with the province. And in addition to some really positive skills, you need to make sure that you have determination and resiliency. What is something I hear on a regular basis? I hear the word no. And I come back the next day because there's a possibility that I'm going to hear the word yes, and I'm going to find the right opportunity for that person, even though they've said no to me. It might not be the right time, it might not be the right opportunity, but if they're passionate about kids and maternal health care, I'm passionate for them, that I'm going to find the solution that works for them, that they can put their name on. In terms of education requirements, it's very beneficial to receive post-secondary education in a variety of areas, right? You can be looking at business, communication, sales, media, public relations. These are all areas that impact your day on a regular basis. You're required to work in teams, build proposals, and depending on the size of shop that you are, that's kind of how we refer to foundations. Depending on your size of shop, you might be responsible for communications, development, and administration all at once. So I have the privilege of having a team around me that's really supportive, but you might be one of two people. You might even be one person. I personally graduated in 2008 from Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, and I received a 2-year program diploma in business administration, specifically in marketing, and further to that, specifically in e-commerce and public relations, which overall, it has impacted so many areas of my life, and we'll talk about my journey in the future, but it definitely helps me every day in my job. Some fundraisers are accredited with a CFRE, and this is a Certified Fundraising Executive. However, this may or may not be required depending on the foundation that you might be working for. At our foundation, it's not required, but we do have some levels of previous education that you should be coming in with. There are networking groups dedicated to fundraisers. For example, the Association of Fundraisers Professionals, the AFP, which helps fundraisers collaborate, share experiences, and learn from each other. So that's just one of the areas you might want to go into if you do get into fundraising or working with an organization. So the big question, how did I get here? So like many fundraisers, I did not come into the foundation through the front door. I came through a journey that led me where I am, and most of my team did the same thing. It's pretty common for fundraisers to come from another path and find their footing in this career a little bit later, and that's okay. My journey started way back in retail. The passion for people has always been in me. I've always wanted to find a solution for them, whether or not it be when I sold leather jackets. I wanted to make sure those people felt great in what they were wearing, all the way to when I was in retail management. That was just in me. And so that's what drove me to be in marketing and get my diploma at NAIT. But marketing, that's so broad, right? When you look at that, you can do so many things. I spent a quick time in advertising, in radio advertising sales, and as short as it was, it really helped me earn my stripes and learn about the media, which looking back today gives me so many positive experiences that I can bring to my communications team and actually understand the language that they're talking about. So all of those elements go into your experience, and I was really privileged to get a chance in advertising. And then for 7 years, I actually worked in agriculture, customer service. So I worked as an administrator. I worked as a coordinator in terms of logistics, working directly with ag families and making sure that they had the right solutions. And then from there, I spent 3 years as a regional customer service lead for Saskatchewan with Cargill. And that gave me management experience. And I truly used my business administration diploma in all of those skills. And this level of detail and responsibility gave me the skills that challenged me to take the step back and say, hey, I wanted to do something that went back right with the community. Like, is there any options that I can get back into that public relations, or I can find solutions for Saskatchewan? Because working in ag, I was like, oh, I need to do something that's provincial. And it was really a gift that the role this role at major gifts manager at Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation was found for me. It was just a perfect fit where I get to still communicate provincially with a ton of different businesses, but I am getting a chance to give back. And so, as you can imagine, you can see on the slide there, my teammates have done a number of different things, whether or not that be event planning. They worked at trade shows, they sold real estate, they worked in media and TV and did copywriting, construction, administration, sales for sure, other non-for-profits. So much of our fundraising experience comes from teammates that have been in other fundraising experiences. So this is just a short snippet of the experiences that I've been through. But really think broad, because foundations need individuals with strengths in all areas that touch communications, administration, finance, leadership, and development. There's a fit if you want to be here. As you can imagine, working in a non-for-profit organization is not the highest paying career. Depending on the size of organization you're in and your expertise, what you were hired to do, the job you were hired to do, your salary can vary. And people don't get into fundraising to get rich. I'm extremely fortunate that my foundation is able to offer benefits that impact retirement, health, for me to feel secure going into the future. But not all organizations can offer that. You need to really decide what's important to you. My reward is being able to be a part of a group of people that are advancing maternal and children's healthcare in our province. We get to do so much. Even beyond that, as a reward, we get to go to events, work with a bunch of different teams and partnerships, go to galas, dress up, meet people, have fun, share stories. I drink a lot of coffee. We have a lot of fun together. And COVID won't last forever. We'll be together one day. We'll have close events, and that's something to look forward to. In the meantime, we're doing what we can online, and extremely rewarding to be able to challenge ourselves and find new ways. The number one thing in terms of reward is knowing that you're helping families. So one of, just as an example of the events that we really get to participate in, which I just thrive on, that working with people and seeing everybody so excited and gathered around one common goal. in September 2019, we opened Jim Pattison Children's Hospital, and that was a historic opening for the province. Like I said, Saskatchewan was only one of 2 provinces in Canada without a dedicated children's hospital. It was a spectacular 3-day event. It was really grand. When you talk about grand openings and looking back in the past of having all these people together, it was incredibly fortunate that the timing worked out the way it did, not only for the kids in their individual rooms in the hospital at this point, to have that hospital open in terms of COVID and the restrictions that are placed upon us right now, but in the terms of the restrictions of the people that we were able to tour through the hospital and celebrate with. It was really the biggest event for us to showcase and do that recognition, as I had mentioned, and thank our donors. Not only our donors, but our partnerships, our incredible volunteers, and our impacted families. What I'm gonna do is show you a bit of a sizzle reel that highlights the opening day, just to see a snippet of the fun that fundraising can bring.
One, two, three.
I'm really so proud to be a part of this foundation and an organization that's working towards impact in our provincial community. If you're looking to be a part of a non-profit team, and you're unsure of which one, the best thing you can do is volunteer. Find opportunity to connect with the causes that you love, and if there's an area that fits you best. Foundations are always looking for committed, reliable people to volunteer and help with community events and committees. And even if in your profession you choose something differently, you might be called on to work on a board and offer your expertise and insight. You can also find a way to be involved on a smaller scale each month. Even if it's becoming a monthly donor, you are making an impact on a foundation. And for us, it would be to help sustain critical needs throughout the year. Even if this isn't your career, you can still be involved in community. The reality is that kids will keep getting sick. Expectant mothers will always need added care for safe childbirth, and medical professionals will always need new tools and innovation to do their work. For me, and I think I speak for our group and our team, we really want to enhance healthcare, and it's really about the families. For example, I'm going to share with you a short video of why we do what we do. It showcases our champion child, Tori Schaefer, and so please enjoy this video showing why we do what we do.
I'm Tori Schaefer, and I'm 13, and I'm from Belterra, Saskatchewan. In my spare time, I really love to play with my brother, play the flute, do crafts, and spend time with family. At age 9, I was diagnosed with a dangerous rare blood disease.
So in March of 2016, Tori ended up getting sick. 2 weeks before that, she had been cheerleading and dancing. That's when they realized that her platelets were only 3, and they're supposed to be between 150 and 400. She ended up with no platelet count. And so the doctor up here in Saskatoon ended up getting her airlifted to Saskatoon. And that's when they figured out that she had this TTP, autoimmune blood disease.
Thanks to donors of the Jim Pattison Children's Hospital Foundation, a piece of equipment was brought in just in the nick of time. I was the first child in this province to be treated with this machine.
And the plasmapheresis machine had come 6 months prior to her having her diagnosis. Then she had this plasmapheresis for 82 days. So we never seen home for 5 months. But it was a blessing that the machine was here and not out of province. Tori being the champion child is rather amazing. It's a lifetime experience for her. She's a fighter and she can inspire other children to have the strength to fight.
What excites me about being the champion child is getting my disease out there so that people understand about it more, knowing that now I can like help other kids in the hospital. It makes me really happy.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'd love to share so much more about specifically Jim Pattison Children's Hospital and the ways that you can make an impact, but it's truly an entirely different presentation. But if you have questions, I'd love to answer them. And I encourage you to go to our website, pattisonchildrens.ca, and take the virtual tour of Saskatchewan's first dedicated children's and maternal hospital. This is what I get to do every day. And I'd love for you all to learn a little bit more about it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Laura. That's very interesting. Again, as your father-in-law, now I finally know what you do.
Finally, yeah.
That's good to know. And, you know, again, you have a rough idea, but when you hear the specifics, that's amazing. All the work that you and your team do, it makes a lot of things possible at the hospital that wouldn't be possible without your work. I'm not sure if anybody else. I don't know if I have any questions. I think I really appreciate you shared your journey. You know that there's multiple different ways to get there and different skills that are required to do what you do and be good at what you do. So I think you answered every question I had. Does anyone else out there have a question?
Thanks so much, Laura. Yeah, that was an awesome presentation. I think we're very fortunate to have this hospital in our province, and now meeting you through this presentation, you are the person. Like, you honestly have that personality. I can see that, and the skills that you know, are needed to do this job very, very well. And I think it just shows students, you know, you just never know where that path is going to take you, and what doors will open. You can't really see everything, but I think your presentation shows just really, you know, dream, because you can get into that dream job, you know, just by what they do in high school and what they do, you know, after they leave school as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. You're right. It's really about the dream, and that reflects so clearly in the building of the hospital, right? Fighting for that dream, right? Thank you.
And I think it was nice that you touched on, you know, ways people can get involved is through volunteering too. And I think that's something for students to be aware of. It that can be a starting point even for a lot of students for a lot of things. You know, get involved as a volunteer in some capacity, and it might even, you know, help you tap into your passions a bit. And if not, it'll always serve you well in the future, having that volunteer experience.
Absolutely.
Anyways, if there's no other questions, Laura, I'd like to thank you once again on behalf of the RDIC. Well done, and I think there'll be lots of views on the YouTube channel. So,
well, thank you so much for having me. So fun.
Okay, thank you again.